everyone. My name is Rick Walsh, VP of Sales for Freedom Equity Group. I want to welcome everybody to the call. You know, with Freedom Equity Group and our crusade to help Americans retire with dignity, we have two paths that you can choose. You could choose either one of them or both of them. And the first one is personal production. You know, through our own pen, we're able to earn a multiple six-figure income. In fact, some of the individuals and the agents in Freedom Equity Group have earned a seven-figure income just through personal production. But to expand past that, we also have the ability of not only being an agent with Freedom Equity Group, but to build your own agency in addition to your personal production. And so that's what we're going to concentrate on today. During the week, you'll see there's 5 or 6 different training webinars on personal production. But today, Wednesdays at 11 o'clock, we talk more about building an agency. And you need a system to do that, and that's what we're going to talk about. The proven methodology that we use at Freedom Equity Group that absolutely works. It's your pathway to success. So let me start off by asking you questions. What would you do if you knew exactly what you needed to do in order to succeed? Sort of a rhetorical question. Of course, you would do what it took to succeed. Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, and that is the system that we use that we know is proven and works. You see, the system is geared to walk the novice from exposure to the dream of prosperity with Freedom Equity Group through predictable steps that will lead to the inevitable outcome of a profitable, knowledgeable FEG vice president. The building block of success that you'll build your FEG empire on is known as the Team Leader Unit. That's 3 new agents who have earned the Sprint Award. We'll get into exactly what is the Sprint Award here shortly. This building block can be easily and predictably replicated. It's first learned, it's then taught, and then it's replicated. What you want to do is you want to become a sort of a team leader factory. It allows you to turn out the bricks in your organization. It'll build a monument to your financial future. As I mentioned at the beginning here, the system is not necessarily for the personal producer. The system is for someone who wants to build an agency. It allows you to be duplicatable, and duplicatability allows you to be leveraged and grow. You see, leveraging income, quite simply, is the ability to slowly but ultimately separate yourself from the generation of your income, allows you to build that lifestyle as opposed to earning a living. In all great businesses, governments, and communities, they rely on a system. You know, here's the good news. You don't need to be talented to run a system, but you do need to be disciplined. Someone without restaurant experience can be successful running a McDonald's restaurant. Why? Because everything is laid out. Exactly what you need to do in order to succeed. So you don't want to ever try to change the system. What you want to do is you want to master it, because you see, if you run the system will run your business. As I mentioned, the team builder or team leader unit is the building block of your business, and it's the sense of urgency and duplicatability that you use to reach this level will become key to your success. The start of being part of the Retire with Dignity crusade is your own personal product. The end product is the achievement of the level of vice president. And the system, well, quite simply, it starts with what is known as the Sprint Award and continues through achieving the level of vice president. There are actually 3 segments or module of the system. Step 1 is the Sprint Award. Step 2 is the Fast Start Award. And finally, Step 3 is the completion of Fast Track to Vice President, which takes about 60 days. We're going to talk about the Sprint Award, and I will get into each of these steps in depth. But your first 10 to 15 days are crucial to set the stage. Step 1, you want to set your goals and objectives. Step 2, you want to meet the spouse of every new agent. What I'm going to do is, when I go through each of these steps, we're going to talk about if you bring a new person on board, there's a difference between recruiting and sponsoring. Recruiting means somebody signed up. Well, you know, that hasn't done anything. Sponsoring means that you take that new individual and you walk them through the steps that they need to go through in order to become most successful and most profitable. So, in helping them go through the Sprint Award, you want to meet the spouse. 3, you want to complete their own personal financial strategy. Start the licensing process if they're not an agent, or the appointment process if they are. Create the inventory for their business, and help them with 3 short field presentations minimum. And you want to do it in that order. You see, to become that factory we talked about, every factory needs the right raw material to create the right end product. Our raw material revolves around attitude. You know, if the time or opportunity is not right for somebody, nobody's good enough to close that deal. And closing the deal, again, doesn't mean just signing somebody up. It means directing and training them through the system. Because if you have to drag someone over the starting line, guess what? You'll have to drag them over the finish line also. If you're willing and able to train a new recruit, but they are not willing and able to be trained, well, then you have sold yourself into a very frustrating position. The factory. You must learn to lead those who can be led and who are coachable. Those that are not coachable, well, they're the wrong materials for your factory. So how do you know if you have the right raw materials? Coachable is not stamped on individuals' foreheads. You have the right raw material if you know the why. You see, individuals will do this business for their reasons, not for yours. You got to help them lay out their goals. Use a live demonstration of the calculator to do that, and make sure you have timelines for their objectives. This is step 1 in the Sprint Award. The Sprint Award, again, are 6 simple steps that need to be completed in the very first 15 days. And that's the first segment of the fast track to Vice President. So you want to sit down with your new agent and map out their goals, because what is important to them is going to be different than what is important to you. And it's their driving factor that matters. So I sit down with somebody, and I want to find out what are they looking to achieve out of their business from the building side. And I'll ask them, after 6 months, assuming that you go through the fast track to Vice President, you're there, you're versed on all of the products, you've done 5 training sales, you're very comfortable on your own, how much annualized income would you like to make starting at 6 months? And let's say they say, well, I'd like to make $100,000 a year. Okay, great. After 1 year, what would that income look like? You'd say, well, I'd like to be on track to making $200,000 a year. Okay. An annualized income after 3 years, what would that be? Let's say they say it's $400,000 a year. Okay. That's what they would like to make, but what's their commitment? I will then ask if they're willing and able to complete the steps to the fast track to Vice President, the Sprint Award, the fast track, and the fast start, which I'll be going over in depth here at this webinar, and do it all within the first 60 days. If so, then we can continue. I want to know what they believe they can produce from a personal production arena, sales per month, after 6 months. Let's say they say, and we're talking to Susan the Great here, let's say Susan says she knows she could do 4 sales a month, all right? And then I want to ask, how many agents does Susan believe she could recruit by the end of 6 months that actually want to go and grow their business? They're committed, not people who just signed up for free in a back office. Let's say Susan says, well, I think I could have 6 people, 6 solid individuals, okay? How about personally recruited by the end of 1 year? Susan says 12, and by the end of 3 years is 20. Now I know what Susan believes she wants to accomplish and what she is able to bring to the table. With that, I want to use the income calculator, a live demo with timeline, to show exactly what would be necessary to do in order to achieve that. So as I bring up the calculator, I'll sort of explain a little bit before I get into the numbers what the calculator means. The first thing is I'll explain target premium, that our average target premium is $3,000 at the VP level. Because remember, Susan, we're starting these goals at the end of 6 months. Then we have our base shop, and someone at the VP level would be at 80%. You start at 30%, very easily go to 40, 50, 60, and then 80. And when you have somebody who achieves your level of success and has their own base shop of agents where they're at the VP level or 80%, they become your first generation VP, and you receive 9%, not on that individual's production, but on their entire base shop. When they have someone in their group that becomes a vice president and they're at the 80% level, that's a second generation base shop or VP to you, and you get 4% on all of the second generation base shops in their entire group. Now, on that 300 that we have up here, that is our average target premium, but I'm going to use our median premium because some of the larger premiums pull people ahead. And because I want to talk about money in their pocket, we pay 75% annualized commissions up front, and that's the first 8 months, and then 9 months, and then 10, 11, and 12 are paid as earned. So let's talk about money in your pocket. If we took 75% of our median target premium, that would be $1,500. And Susan said she believes she could do 4 cases a month on personal production at our VP level. She would be doing quite well, making about $57,000 a year. But remember, she said she could probably introduce 6 solid people herself. I'm going to cut that down. I'm going to say, Susan, then would you believe that I'm being conservative, that you have only 2 solid agents that you sponsored in those first 6 months? They're starting out at the 30% level, and they're not doing as good as you. They're doing 3 cases per month instead of 4. Your overrides on that would be $54,000. We have achieved your first goal at the end of 6 months of being over $100,000. Now, Susan, you said by the end of 12 months, you could have 12 solid agents building in your organization. And I'm going to say, would I be conservative if I brought that down to 8? 2 that are just starting, 2 that have moved ahead to the 40% level, 2 that have moved ahead to the 50% level, 2 that have moved ahead to the 60% level, each doing 3 cases a month. Once again, Susan, we have achieved your goals of $200,000 on an annualized basis with less than you thought it would take, and using a very conservative $1,500 target premium. Now, by the end of a few years, you said $400,000 per month, which means some of these individuals that are in your base shop are going to grow to the level of vice president and be your first generation vice president, and some will grow and become your second generation vice president. So as we look at that, let's say 2 of them out of those 8 became leaders and vice presidents and had their own base shop, doing the same as your base shop is doing, 28 cases per month, and 1 of them became your second level base shop. At this point, there you are, just about at your goal of $398,000. Your goal was $400,000. But and you had been promoted to national vice president, which actually is a higher commission structure with higher overrides. Well, at this level of achievement, you would receive another promotion to senior national vice president, which would mean that $398,000, that one promotion alone boosted you almost $50,000 a year. You're now at $446,000. What I want to do is I want to find out from Susan what she wants to accomplish. Then I want to find out what she believes she can produce. And in almost all cases, I could show that with less production, we can achieve their goals by utilizing a live demonstration of the calculator. Remember what her goals were and what she thought she could do. Step number 2 in the area of the sprint is you want to meet the spouse of your new agent. You need to get the spouse on board. And that doesn't mean active as a participant, just knowledgeable as to what their spouse is going to be doing when they're out on appointments, etc. You know, we all live our family lives before our business lives. We've got to have that team mentality. The spouse may not be part and probably won't be part of the business process, but they are surely part of the capability of our new agent to become part of the crusade. It's our responsibility to educate the spouse as well as the trainee on the merits of our business and our program. Part 3 is your own personal program. You got to complete a needs analysis with your sponsor and mentor, or you do with your new agent, on a program that is suitable for them to protect themselves and their family. It may not be the normal policy for other people, but it's something that's geared to them. To be a crusader, you really have to be a product of the product. The last thing you want to do is be out on an appointment with a trainee, and as that new person is looking at the program and saying it looks good for them, and to turn to you and say, do you own this product? And you say, well, no, but it's good for you. That is not going to work. It's a necessary step also for the fast track to vice president. It's not necessary to make it to vice president nor any level in our company, but the fast track requires us to become a product of the product. So let's take a look at a very quick, simple needs analysis. If I'm sitting down with Bill and Susan, and we're doing their needs analysis, I might ask them, what is their total consumer debt, meaning, you know, car loans, credit cards, etc. Let's say they say it's $50,000. And then I ask, do they have anything for if let's say Bill precedes Susan and passes first, you know, if you have a final expense set aside, which might be an easy $15,000. If they don't, we need to put that in the needs analysis. I might then ask Susan, if Bill were to pass before you, what's his income per year, and how many years would you need before you knew you were back on your feet the way you needed to be from a financial standpoint? She might say, well, he makes $50,000 a year, and I think I'd need 5 years. Well, that's $250,000. Then I ask about the renter, if they own the home. If they own it, I say, would you like to have the mortgage paid off if you were on your own? She says, yes. That's $275,000. And do you have any children? She says, 2. And I say, would you like them to go to college? Well, yes. Well, then we might need about $200,000 to take that. Your actual needs may be a little bit larger than you thought, Susan. I estimate about $790,000. Now, when we take a look at the funding for this, and we got to know also that because we want to, if we're looking at a retirement program for Bill and Susan, we want the least amount of insurance with the most amount of cash value. So we probably won't have $790,000 in death benefit, but we can supplement that with term policies that might cover that temporary need, such as the kid in college, etc., but have that come in with living benefits. So let's say I'm asking, what can you afford to put away per month? And I can expect an answer like $150, and that's fine. And then I say, do you currently have life insurance? And they say, well, yeah, we've got this term policy or that policy or whatever. And where appropriate, I would say then our new policy will be able to cover the needs of that policy, and especially if it's the old-fashioned type where you have to die to get the money, we may look at, after ours is issued, melding their needs from that one into our program, which would then free up that $90 a month or so that Susan says they have on a term policy. Then I'll ask if they have an IRA or a 401k that they contribute to for retirement, the part that's non-matched by their employer. And they might say, well, yeah, we do. We put about $200 away into an IRA. Well, we're going to be able to give them a retirement program that never goes down when the market goes down and always distributes tax-free. And so we'll be switching that non-matched portion into our program. Then I ask, well, do you get a tax refund at the end of the year? And they say, well, yeah, we get about, $1,200, $1,400 at the end of the year. Well, Bill and Susan, do you realize that you are giving the government a $100 a month loan tax-free? And you don't have to. And they say, well, how do you not do that? They take that money out of my check automatically. You just up the number of exemptions at your HR department until the income matches, so that you won't be giving extra money to the government for a year, and that extra $100 could be part of your retirement planning program, that instead of giving it free of interest to the government, you're gaining interest, stock market interest, and putting it in a tax-free environment. There's another $100. And then I might ask them, do they know that by working with us in a home-based business, that you actually have deductions, personal expenses that can become business expenses, and we can show you how you can find an extra $150 per month that you can get out of the deductions that you'll have by running your own business. So that $150 budget that you thought you had, you really have about $690. With that in mind, Bill and Susan, what do you believe you would want to put away for your retirement? We're not talking about spending it. We're talking about putting it away for your future. They might say, well, you know, I'm not really sure about those home-based business deductions, and I've never done that before. Let's just use $500. And I say, okay, then at $500, that's your planned monthly contribution, which means you will be putting in about $6,000 per year. This is where I'm going to use the benefits of the IUL sheet. I'm going to do a full illustration, and on this particular case, I'm using Life of the Southwest, or National Life Group, a 150-year-old company, a rated AM Best, $20 billion in assets. And I'm going to say that with a lifetime contribution, if Bill and Susan are 40, and let's say they want to retire at age 70, which is the new 65, they will be putting in a total of $180,000. Now, I'm going to do the entire full illustration and leave that illustration with them. But as I do that illustration in front of them, I'm going to take the numbers from the illustration and transfer them to this easy-to-read and understand sheet so that I could explain the policy better to them. I'm going to show them that that's their contribution, and their immediate benefit is a death benefit of $415. Should anything happen to Bill, she's halfway through all that she needs in order to sustain that loss from a financial standpoint. Then I'm going to talk about the living benefits, and should there be a terminal illness, let's say at age 65. But before that, there's a higher probability of critical illness at a much earlier age. The average age of a heart attack in the United States is 47. So on critical illness, I'm going to use 45. Should Bill suffer a heart attack, depending on the severity, I use the middle number here, he'll be able to get paid $213,000, sort of a self-completing feature for this retirement program. Should he have a chronic illness that he needs monthly income, he could get $7,000 per year, per month, for over 4 years, should he have that chronic illness at age 85. And should that terminal illness strike at age 65, the payment would be $382,000. Now, we're talking about if things go wrong, that's what will happen, and that's the benefits that they will receive. But what if everything goes right and they're able to retire? And we said at age 70, they'll be able to pull out $78,000 plus per year, income tax-free. You know, in their old IRA or 401k, the taxable equivalent would have been $110,000 they would have to pull out of that vehicle in order to have $78,000 tax-free. Because they told me they had good genes, I'm just going to illustrate this out to age 85, meaning that they will take a total of $1.1 million out of that policy in retirement in a tax-free environment. And at age 85, they'll still have a death benefit left over of $178,000. And so you see, Bill and Susan, your monthly contribution of $500 is money that we found for you when you thought you had $150 to put away for your future. And the total amount that you put into this program in your lifetime is $180,000, and you have an immediate benefit of nearly $500,000 should something happen to Bill. You have benefits ranging from $200,000 to almost $400,000 on the 7 times more likely event of a heart attack, stroke, or cancer. You have a retirement of nearly $80,000 a year tax-free, And then at age 85, you still have a death benefit after taking out $1.1 million. You have a death benefit about the same amount as you put into it over your entire lifetime. Now, Bill and Susan, do you see any reason you wouldn't want to move forward with this right away? And so by using a benefit sheet, you're able to put out to people exactly what that living benefits would do for them. And please stand by here. I'm just checking on a couple of slides here. Okay. So it's an easy way to show them, and that's the sheet I'm going to be leaving with them if we're not writing up that policy tonight. Now, the next step in your Sprint Award after getting the policy done would be the inventory for your business. You see, a grocery store needs groceries. A shoe store needs shoes. Your business needs inventory too. And the inventory, quite simply, are the prospects you're going to talk to. The interesting thing is your inventory is free, and it's easy to get. A prospect list is a list of people who may or may not join our crusade. It's also people who may or may not buy from you, may or may not need our product. So you don't want to prejudge. Now, I know that people are reticent about talking to people they know, whether it's in showing them our business opportunity or our product. That is just a natural tendency. That's when I use the 10-circle list. I'll hand them a sheet of paper with 10 circles on it, similar to this, and I'll ask them to put in the names of the people they know, love, trust, that are closest to them. Don't try to think about what this is all about. Just put in the names. If your parents or siblings are alive, they'll probably end up in these circles. And let's say they fill it out, and it's Bill and Susan, Ginny, Albert, their sister, Alan, Emma, Mary, Mom, and Dad. And then I'm just going to take my red felt tip pen. I'm going to put a red X over 7 of them. I'm going to explain that the law of averages or the actuarial tables are pretty accurate. And that is that 7 out of every 10 people will suffer a heart attack, stroke, or cancer and survive prior to retirement. You're 7 times more likely to have this type of event than to die and need your insurance. And so I tell them that, it's going to happen to 7 out of 10 people on that list. Maybe only 6 for them, and the next person it's 8, but on average, it's going to happen to 7. And I ask them, and I say, if you're finding it difficult to approach, let's say, these 10 people with what you have to offer, when it does happen to those 7, will you be able to visit them in the hospital and look them in the eye and say, there's nothing I could have done about this unfortunate illness, but I could have done something about the financial challenges that you now have, like keeping your home, being out of work, etc. I'm sorry I didn't bring it to you earlier. If you're not willing to be able to tell them after the fact, then why not tell them before the fact? I also ask them, did I pick the right 7? They normally say, well, I don't know. And I say, I don't know either. Here's my pen. You pick the right 7. They say, I can't pick the right 7. You're right. None of us know which 7 it is. But you know what? We do know it will be 7. Protect yourself from that embarrassing situation, and at least let those 10 people know in those 10 circles what they can do to mitigate the financial devastation that a heart attack, stroke, cancer, or illness could provide for them by getting the new type of life insurance. That 10-circle list, like we said, have the agent fill it out. Put a red X through the 7 of them. This is what I was just explaining to you. And explain to them on the law of averages how it's impossible to pick, just like it's impossible to pick the right people for this business or the product. We've got to let those people decide for themselves. It's good to have 100 names and numbers, but an absolute minimum of 25 to start with on that inventory. Let me ask you a question. Suppose you were starting a grocery store, and I pulled a semi-tractor trailer up outside full of fresh produce and baked goods and inventory. And I said, take what you want, it's free. Would you unload a third of the truck? Would you unload a half of the truck? Oh, unload the entire truck. And why? Well, because it's free, it's good, it's what we need, etc. Well, let me ask you another question. if I pulled up 2 trucks in front of your house, in front of your grocery store, one with fresh produce and baked goods, and the other with stale bread and rotten tomatoes, which one would you unload? Well, you'd unload the one with good. And that's why this 100 names or 25 minimum is not accomplished by the new recruit alone. Get the spouse involved. The spouse is definitely going to have a say if you're going to call, people up that you both know and tell them about the newfound treasure in living benefits. If you can be present and the spouse, all the better. And cheating is allowed. Cell phones, Facebook page, Christmas card list, etc. When I talk about that rotten tomato truck out there, well, that's if the agent wants to fill it out themselves. You might get a list that looks like the white pages. So help them and get the spouse involved. And use the cell phone and Facebook. I get people who say, I don't know anybody. And I say, well, do you mind if I take a look at your cell phone? And they say, cell phone, why? I said, just click on the address book. Guess what? There's a lot of names. They have to go through pages when they bring that up. So you want to immediately identify the first 3 to 5 to help them qualify for the Sprint Award, because we're going to give them a call with a very simple question, which I'll get into in a moment. Okay, step number 5 in the Sprint Award is get that licensing process started. If you're already a licensed agent, it means getting your appointment paperwork started. No license means no business now or later. What's the purpose of continuing trying to train a greenie, someone who has not started the most easy and vital of processes in getting their license? Are they really just sticking their toes in the water to see what will happen if they try a little? Do they want to try before they buy? Is this the type of commitment you want to spend your time and talents on? Will you let yourself be the guinea pig? Will you cheapen yourself for this test? Don't do it. And then step number 6 of the 6 steps of the Sprint Award to be accomplished in the first 15 days is 3 to 5 short presentations. These are live, in person, or over the internet. And the 7 magic words as you call on individuals, are you in front of your computer? I simply say, I looked at one of the most compelling videos ever. Bob, are you in front of your computer? Yeah. Well, then go to www.fegintro.com. And as he does, I explain there's a 36-minute video there that he's got to watch. I'll call him back in 40 minutes and answer any questions that he might have. These are just basically invitation for more information. Simple, short, to the point. They will lead you from there as to whether they have an interest in the product, the business, or no interest whatsoever. And any answer is okay. Because we get paid to prospect if we're building an agency. You see, you get paid on every prospect, whether they join or not. Find out your average and measure your activity in dollars. If 1 out of 10 people join and they create a $2,000 commission, then each prospect out of those 10 was actually worth $200 to you. You couldn't get to the 1 unless you went through the 10. You can predict. Insurance companies use this law of averages. They call it the actuarial tables. They bet their very existence on it. Why? Because it works. Once you know what a prospect is worth, you can predict exactly what it will take to earn $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month or more on your efforts. Your organization will expand from using the system. After the Sprint Award, you want to continue on to the Fast Start Award. The Sprint Award is completed within your first 15 days. The Fast Start Award is completed within your first 45 days, and it's basically creating a brick or a building block of your organization. It's 3 people who complete the 6th task of the Sprint Award. Those 3 people mean that you're more than halfway to vice president with those sales. You've been promoted twice so far. You have completed your licensing course or appointment paperwork. And then finally, the fast track to VP is just 2 more individuals who have completed the Sprint Award requirements with a total in 60 days. That is 5 individuals or 5 policies written. Those are training sales done in conjunction with your trainer or mentor, and they're done within 60 days, issue paid in 90 days. They have a total monthly target premium of $1,500, promotes you to vice president, 80% contract with another 20 points or so in overrides below that, about 100 points in your contract at that point after just 5 sales in 60 days. The producer versus the builder. Like I said, a producer, you can earn multiple 6-figure, even a 7-figure income as a producer in our company, which separates us so much from other recruiting models where you have to recruit in order to make a living. Here, you don't. But if you decide to, it could be phenomenal because producers really look for a lead to make a sale. They get paid, but then they're unemployed. Builders, they look for a prospect to train and duplicate in the system. Then they get paid over and over again because they're leveraged. They're separating themselves from the generation of their income. So folks, you know, there's 2 ways of learning any business. One is to learn by experience. The second way is to learn by people who have learned by experience. The latter is quicker, much more profitable. We do have a system that works just like McDonald's has a system. If you bought a McDonald's franchise, would you change the way they make their french fries? Would you add hot dogs to the menu and take away the Big Mac? Would you do it your way? Or would you follow the system that was proven to allow you to achieve your goals and become as successful as you want to? We're a long-term business in a big long-term industry with a product line now that 149 million Americans who currently have life insurance don't even know about living benefits. And just like the refi boom, it's time to refi and put people into insurance you don't have to die to use, and then use an upgrade to an index universal life to be able to help people retire with dignity without risk to their retirement, without a downside to their retirement. And as people found out yesterday, even governments like the city of Detroit will let you down. If you haven't heard, the pensioners there have lost their pensions. And so what we're able to do is put their retirement in a very safe, tax-free environment. Not one person has ever lost $1 in an insurance policy ever in the history of the United States. We cannot even say that about the banking industry. We're safe, we're secure, we're profitable, we're long-term. We look forward to working with each and every one of you.